So this is a follow-up video as requested by someone who'd replied to or made a comment, and then we'd had a conversation, and so he'd replied to my comments on a video that I made regarding how to change the order of effects on the Boss GT-6B bass effects processor. So what he was asking was how to get a Djent Bass sound out of the Boss GT-6B. Now, I will preface this by saying I don't play Djent. I play some metal, but not specifically Djent per se. And I definitely like the genre, but I've never really taken time to dial in anything specifically for Djent. What I've done was just, I've had my own bass tone, or, when I play in in various cover bands, I would try to chase some of the tones of specific songs wherever possible. I play in an Iron Maiden tribute, so I definitely do what I can to capture Steve Harris's sound, but that's just with dry bass and some compression and EQ. Again, similarly to the way Steve and his bass tech have tried to do it over the years. So that said, this video is not necessarily going to be on how to get Djent specifically from the Boss GT-6B, but I might try to lead you how to get there. I say that because I got a pretty cool Djent sound, but what you will be hearing by the very limited sound samples I'll offer here is my bass amp here in the room, because I'm not going through any kind of an interface. It's just the amp in the room and what's being picked up by this phone. And with the bass that I'm using, and just to explain what I'm using it's a parts bass that I put together. The person that had asked me to do this video let me know that he plays through, I believe, an Ibanez BTB 5-string bass. So the closest thing that I have to that is an Ibanez SR-505 parts bass that I put together with a random 5-string neck that I found on eBay. So it's just the body, and this body has Bartolini Mark I pickups. He told me that the amp he uses has a single 12-inch, and it's a combo. So what I'm using, the closest thing that I have to that, is this Mesa Boogie 112 Scout. And in terms of what's connected to make all this happen, effectively, it's just the bass, the GT-6B, and the amp. That's it. What's connected in reality is a Boss looper pedal, because I looped a Riff to go into the GT-6B so that I can dial sounds in after the fact. This here is a Dr. Scientist frequency analyzer, and I'm using it just to kind of get an idea of what the frequency curve looks like. It's not 100% gonna tell the right story, but that's not the fault of the gear. It just might be the way I'm connecting it, the way whatever it is. This thing is actually fantastic. And to that point, I have it rigged through a Boss PSM5, which is off screen here, because I wanted to engage it as a separate effects loop to make sure that my sound isn't affected when it's in there, and it's not. So I've confirmed that. So when you hear sound from the bass, you'll hear that, right? And I'm just kind of slapping the bass so that you see that the frequency analyzer is working, right? The reason why that helped me as well is when I dialed other things in, you see the peaks change ever so slightly depending on where it's sitting on the EQ curve. Now, I could be hitting this thing harder, I could be doing things smarter, but again, I just wanted to at least maybe show that bassist the basics on how to get there. And I really think that he knows his Boss GT6 very well, but he asked me about how to get a Djent bass sound. I'm not an expert at it. I wanted to at least offer this just in case he wasn't already aware of how to do it in terms of my method here. So just to reiterate, I've not connected anything else. So really, anything you hear is strictly coming from what you can get from the GT-6B. So I'll go ahead and kick it off. I have looped a riff that I would guess be a pretty djent-friendly riff with some stops, a couple of slightly longer notes to give some different values to see how the effects react to the riff. And another sort of quick summary is that all I've done to the dry bass is add a little bit of compression, a little bit of overdrive, and a little bit of EQ. There's also a noise suppressor always at work that I have employed on the GT-6B. And that's just as a rule, but it also just helps kind of gate some of that extra noise that might have otherwise been happening because I am using a little bit of distortion. So I'll go ahead and loop this riff. I'll add the 3 effects that I've added to it to come up with my final Djent Bass sound. And then I'll explain how I did it in the settings as best I can so that if anyone watching this video or the gentleman that I'm responding to wants to attack it the same way, they've got a little bit of a walkthrough to hopefully help them. All right, so here's the riff, and I'll play it clean first, and then you'll see me add in the compression. Actually, first I'll add the distortion first, then the EQ, and then the compression. So here's the riff. So that's the sound. It's super basic. I'm not expecting anyone to be blown away by what they just heard. Again, it's the amp in the room, not connected to any direct interface. And the point of this video is just to see how you get there, and you can dial in your own based on your needs, your gear, how you play, etc., etc. So again, it's dry bass coupled with distortion, EQ, and compression. So the whole point of adding compression is to tighten things up a little bit and to make sure that the notes are as even as possible to feed the overdrive. The EQ is to bring out some of those frequencies that might be a little more djent friendly, but the other part of the EQ is how you're going to sit in the mix against guitars. Because my basic understanding of djent is that you want to supplement the guitars. You may not stand out as much as your own thing because you're also using drive. The key thing about the drive, though, is no matter what you dial in, it's pretty crucial that you have a blend so that you don't lose any of that low end in the final sound of the bass. So, specifically for the GT-6B, and I've written a test patch, by the way, as you can probably see, for this. And I use this in manual mode so that it's basically just a row of stomp boxes. There are a number of tutorials, I think, on YouTube walking you through how to actually use the GT-6B. So I invite you to go ahead and check those out. And if for some reason you can't find any, also check the internet to see that there's anything written. If you really want something of a walkthrough, I can try to provide it, but I've got really, really basic knowledge on how to use this thing, and I've only used it for my purposes. Anyway, going through the compressor, right? I go to the compressor settings. So my compressor settings are, let me go all the way to the beginning here. When you click on the compressor, you see that light go on. Click that button and it'll show you all your settings. Going all the way from the left, compressor is obviously on and off depending on how what you toggle. Next setting is I chose the Boss Comp as my type because there's a few different compressors in the GT-6B. I put the attack to 20, the sustain to 40, the tone to +1, and again, that's to sort of help feed the distortion along the way, and the level at 30 because I like to set my effects to where the volume is as even as possible between bypass and the tone unless I specifically want to boost. And if I specifically ever want to boost, I attack that with a separate volume boost, but not in the effects, because my intent is whenever I kick on any given effect, I also want it to play with any combination of the other effects. So if I wind up having any kind of boost, that might mess things up a little bit. But anyway, those are the settings on the compressor. So now let me disengage that and go over to the distortion. So that's lit up, so I'll click on the distortion button here, or the OD. Let me click all the way to the left to show you from start to finish. So the type that I chose was Custom 1. It's because it offers a few more options at the end. So let me just continue to walk through. So again, Custom 1, drive at 50, bass at +5, treble at +10, effect level at 15, direct level at 15, and again, type ODB3, and there's some more options after this. Bottom, I put at 0. Top, I put at +10. Low, I put at +10. High at +50. And that's actually the end of the parameters here. Now, the reason why I chose those specific parameters is obviously because of how I have everything set up here and what sounds good to me in the room. And I have the, I forgot to mention, and I apologize, I have the amp set flat and the EQ on the bass also set flat. So any EQing I'm doing is happening right in here. Yes, I understand each amp is gonna have its own color. Yes, I understand each bass is gonna have its own color. But this is my best attempt, and again, I just wanted to kind of get the methodology down. For the EQ, and I've assigned this pedal to control the preamp, right? I go into here, and let me go all the way to the back. This might be a little tough to follow because you'll have to use the dial to kind of get the separate frequencies and settings, but let me walk through it. For EQ low, I have the Q at 16, at 95 hertz, and +1 decibels. For EQ mid, I have the Q at 5, 250 hertz, +2 decibels. For EQ high, I have the Q at 2, 1K, and 3 decibels, +3 decibels. And the level I have at 0 dB because I wanted to affect the tone but not actually have a boost. And that's it. So again, the only other setting I have is the noise suppressor. So you can access the noise suppressor by clicking name NS master until you get to the noise suppressor, which is on. And then once you get there, you click left and right for the settings. I have the threshold set at 100 max, and I have the release set at minimum. So that is everything in terms of the settings on the GT-6B, and hopefully this was at least a little bit helpful in getting there. And it's just a methodology. Again, I urge you to try this on your own. Don't rely on the sounds I have here. And if there are any questions at all, please, please, please feel free to comment. I will do my very best and answer any questions you may have. Please like the video just to spread the word. I am not a content creator in the sense of putting out frequent content. It's just specific to any questions I've gotten. So you're not gonna see a whole lot of content come out of me. And on my channel, I post a lot of random stuff based on my interests. So that's really about it. I'd be so happy to have a conversation with you all in the comments. Again, hopefully this helped. Feel free to subscribe, but you do not need to. I don't make money off this. I was not paid by Boss or Dr. Scientist or Ibanez or Mesa Boogie. I just happen to use the gear. I'm just a fellow bassist / musician. Anyway, again, hope this helped. Hope to catch you in the comments, and have a great day.